Hi, hello, and a big warm welcome to you. Thank you for stopping by and hanging out with me as we take another exciting adventure into the world of Maya. Today we're going to be discussing how to add custom attributes to your character's rig to help streamline your animation project. I recently came across a really cool rig that I was really excited to dive into and animate with, but I came across one little speed bump, and that was it didn't have custom finger controls. Now, animating fingers could be a little bit tedious because you have 15 different joints you're going to have to animate and keyframe and keep track of. So, without further ado, let's go ahead, let's jump into Maya, and let's see how we can streamline our animation projects to get our projects out even faster. Alright, so now that we're in Maya and we have our character Ahsoka Tano imported into the scene, one thing I noticed when I was exploring the rig, just seeing what it had to offer, is it didn't have any custom finger controls for me. So let's say I wanted to make a fist, I would have to go through and select all 15 of these finger joints, and I'm going to have to keyframe those, I'm going to have to manipulate those, and it's just something that's going to add a lot of extra time into my process, and it's going to be kind of a headache trying to keep track of all these keyframes. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add some attributes sliders to make this a little bit easier for me and streamline the process a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and add all these finger attributes into the wrist control so I can have everything all together here. So first, with our wrist control selected, we're going to go up to the edit attributes right up here, and then we're just going to click add attribute. That's going to bring up our add attribute window. So first, we have the long name, so let's go ahead and type in index curl because we're going to be working on our index finger first. So we're going to want to make sure we have our attribute keyable. This is very important. If you don't have this, then this whole process isn't really going to work. I like to use floats because that's going to give me decimal points, and that's going to make my animation run a lot smoother going from keyframe to keyframe. Our minimum, our maximum, and our default properties, these are going to be the caps that you're setting for your attribute slider right over here. I like to keep my default at 0 because that's going to be my resting position. Minimum, I'm going to go ahead and select -2. My maximum, I'm going to set that one at 10, and then I'm going to go ahead and click add. So when I click add, you're going to come over here in the attribute window, and you're going to see we have our slider here. And when we slide it over, we go all the way to 10 and down to -2. That means we have this loaded in properly. So let's go ahead and let's continue with the rest of the fingers. Next, we're going to add the middle curl. All right, and we're going to make sure it's keyable as a float. And my minimum, we're going to do the same thing as -2 and 10. Add that in there. Boom, we're all set. So let's hit the ring next. And we have the keyable float, and we have -2 as our minimum, and our maximum we're going to set to 10. Add. Alright, next we have our pinky curl. That one is going to be keyable, float, same as the last, -2 and 10 for our min-max. And then last but certainly not least, we're going to have our thumb curl. Same as before, keyable float, and then it's going to be -2 and 10. We're going to add that in there, and as you can see, we have all of our attributes into our wrist control. So like you saw before when I was sliding this, nothing's happening. That's because we haven't set our values yet. So one thing to make sure, we're going to keep this one at 0. Our index curl is at 0, and then we're going to jump up here to key, and then we're going to go to set driven keys, and we're going to set. This is what's going to make these attributes manipulate this finger. So our driver is going to be our wrist control because the driver is the one with the attribute attached to it. So let's go ahead and click the wrist control, and we're going to click load driver. So now you see there's our wrist, and we have all of our keyable attributes right here, which is what we want. Next is our driven. That's going to be the joints that are going to be manipulated by the attribute slider. So shift and clicking all 3 of our index joints, we're going to click load driven, and look at that. We have all 3 of our index finger joints here. So like we had set up before, we're going to want to make sure we have our index curl, which is set to 0. So let's go ahead and set up our defaults. I'm going to be wanting to do the rotate Z because the rotate Z is going to be the curl that we're going to want to do for making the fist. So we're going to make sure our rotate Z on the index curl is at 0, and then we are going to click key. Now notice when I click key, we don't have the little red key here. but you can see that it changes colors. That means we have the key added in there. So let's go ahead and do the same thing for the middle one. We're at 0 and we're at index curl. Let's go ahead and key it. And then last we have the tip, rotate Z, we're at 0 and key. So now all that we just did right there is when our index curl is at 0, this is the resting position that we're going to be at. So let's go ahead and crank this all the way up to 10, and this is going to be the maximum. So we're going to make sure we have the index curl selected. We have our rotate Z. Let's click our first joint, and then we're just going to rotate this into the position that I'm going to want to have it in when I have her clench into the fist. So that's looking good. Let's make sure we click key, otherwise this won't work properly. So now that we have keyed, we're going to go to the middle one, our rotate Z, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to twist that up right about there. That looks like a proper position. We're going to click key. And last we have the tip of the finger. We're on the rotate Z for the index curl. So let's go ahead and rotate this right about there. That looks good. Key that. And now let's jump back to our wrist control. And if we did this properly, when we slide it back, there we go. So now instead of having to select all those keys, all I have to do is slide this. So now we have to go the other way because our fingers also curl up. So we're still at -2, we're still on our index curl. So I'm just going to go ahead and select all of these on the rotate Z, and I'm going to select -20. That looks like a proper position. Like if she's pushing up off the floor, it's going to give that kind of bend to the finger like that. Let's go ahead and key that. So now, if we did this properly, there we go. Nice smooth transitions. So now all you have to do is go ahead and do that for the rest of the controls. One thing that you want to keep in mind, if we're going to work on the middle control, make sure you click the middle control and then reload your drivers. So we're going to click middle and then select 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to load driven, and that brings your middle fingers in there. That's definitely key, otherwise when you slide your middle curl, it's not going to work. Just to show you how easy this makes everything, I have this set up already. So all I have to do is go from thumb curl, click and drag down. I'm going to type in 10, and look at that. Just a click of the button, I can make her go into a fist. As opposed to going through and going all 15 of these, and it's just headache-inducing nonsense after that. So there we have it. We just learned how to add custom attributes and use set-driven keys to help you with your animation process. Alright, and there we have it, guys. We just learned how to add custom attributes to our rigs in Maya. I hope this was informative for you. This is definitely a good way using set-driven keys to help streamline your animation process and make it a little less headache-inducing for you. So if you like what you saw, if you found it informative, go ahead, make sure you click the like, make sure you click the subscribe, and I can't wait to see you next time. And in the meantime, keep on creating, guys.